Welcome back to What the Fertility Season 2. This morning we are welcoming Tamika Michelle Johnson, attorney, certified matchmaker, and most importantly for this podcast, publisher and author of 40 plus fertility tips for women over 40 who are trying to conceive. Tamika naturally conceived her sons at 41 and 43 years old. Welcome, Tamika.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to
So
have
excited,
you.
I know.
I don't think we've had so many podcasts in season 2 about the topic like pregnancy over 40, but I think you're our first guest, number one, to write a book about it, but number two, to do it naturally.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone we've had has gone through IVF or some kind of like additional treatments or something.
Donor.
So that's so
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a journey though, regardless of how you do it, whether it's natural or with assistance, it's a journey
Yeah,
for
so
all of us.
would you mind sharing with our listeners? I'm sure obviously this starts a long time ago, and you have quite the career. So I'm not sure if that played into just the delay in wanting to have children or what that looked like for you.
So yeah, no, the career didn't have anything to do with it. That was probably more relationship based. The reason why I didn't have any. But yeah, so I have three children altogether. My oldest is almost 21, and I had her when I was 25 years old. So was not planning on getting pregnant. It definitely was, oops. And I did get pregnant. It was after my first year of law school, and I was a single mother basically from the time that she was born. And I knew that I wanted to have more children. I just was like, I'm not going to do it as a single mother again. Like, this is really hard, tough, and challenging. And then struggle, like dealing with everything else that comes with going to law school, graduating, becoming an attorney, opening your law firm, like all of that.
Yeah.
So at 30, like so many women, I'm like into my career now. I just really kind of started practicing. I met a guy and fell in love, but it was not the right person, unfortunately. And unfortunately, I was with him for 10 years and what I refer to as my good baby making years, all of my 30s. So basically, we were together 30 to 40. It was on again, off again. It was really an unhealthy relationship. There was a lot of stress involved. My hair was coming out, and I say all this for a reason. And just the dynamics of the relationship just was not healthy. So at 40, looking at how this was just an unhealthy relationship, not just for me, but for my daughter, because she's living it and experiencing it as well. I had to finally choose me. And so I had to end the relationship, which was really, really hard. When you invested 10 years in a relationship, it's significant. So I ended up reconnecting with my now husband. It's kind of ironic. I had broken up with my ex, and I'm like in my day, in the middle of the day, going to an appointment, but I stopped at a shopping plaza and I'm walking and this car almost hit me. And I looked and I'm like, this guy almost hit me. And I looked to see who's driving, and it is my now husband who we met. We met back in 2003 when my daughter was one initially. And we just kind of kept in contact every once in a while. But yeah, I saw he almost hit me and we kind of reconnected from there. So I guess it was just like meant
It's
to
meant
be.
to be.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild.
I love that.
Yes. So we started dating, and probably 6, 8 months later, we decided to be exclusive in a relationship. So of course, I'm 40 by now. I have the conversation of, do you want children? He was 46, 47 at the time. Again, I was 40, and I hear all the statistics like we all hear at 40, at 35 plus. Can you get pregnant? It's going to be really hard to get pregnant. If you get pregnant, you're going to have a miscarriage. If you do have a baby, there's going to be some deformities or defects or something like that. So you're just terrified. And I'm like thinking, I'm not sure if my eggs even work at 40 because I had resolved myself. I'm not going to have any more children. I'm 40. So we had a discussion early on, and he said he didn't want to have kids. He didn't have any kids of his own. And so, well, we were like, okay, we'll try. Well, we won't try, but we won't try to prevent it either. So 6 months later, I wasn't pregnant. And so then I'm kind of putting it all on me. I'm like 40. I was like, but wait a minute, I already had a baby. Like really in my head, I was thinking, yeah, I know I'm 40, but I can still have a baby, I'm sure. So 6 months in, I'm like, his sperm doesn't work. Like he's like sterile. Like he's
Like,
got to
it's
be
him.
sterile. It's not me.
It's not
It's
me.
him.
It's not me.
I
Yeah.
love it how women are like, we're not trying, but we're not trying. And then when it doesn't happen, I was the same way. And then when it doesn't happen, you're like, oh, we're trying.
Yeah, right. And I was like, what the heck? I was like, oh my gosh, I am barren. Like really, I am barren, or he's sterile. Like one of them, something's going on.
Yeah.
So, um, again, like 6 months in, and then one day, and I'll never forget, it was like on a Sunday afternoon. I went to the bathroom and I just like bawled. Like I just was like all these emotions. I just became overcome by them, and I realized that I had not really fully processed my past relationship. You know, being a woman, being a professional, you built this skin, right? And so when something happens, you're just kind of like, I'm just going to keep it moving. Like I'm going to keep going. You know, things will get better. And I never really processed the relationship. Again, it was 10 years. I never shed a tear. And I needed to. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's a loss. And so I remember just kind of, again, just like falling, and it was spiritual for me. And I was like, God, just help me get over my past, my ex, and help me be the wife that my husband needs me to be. You know, show me that path.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I was just overcome with so much peace. Like I've never experienced peace like that ever in my life. And a month later, I was pregnant.
That's
Wow.
And so it's really just the stress and this pressure that we put on ourselves, and we internalize it. And it really does impact our ability to conceive, especially when you're talking about infertility. You go to the doctors, you have all the tests, or like everything looks good, numbers look good. Why can't I get pregnant? Physically, you're fine, but a lot of it is emotional and it's mental. And so, you know, I tell people, you know, if you have something, a trauma, whatever it is, you know, go through it, process that, you know, go to therapy, you know, go to a counselor. It's so important. You know, your mental health, you know, plays a part on your physical fertility health.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I got pregnant. We were excited, but the excitement quickly turned to anxiety and fear. Again, because, you know, I went to Dr. Google, and Dr. Google just put me into another depression. And I would talk about it, and my husband would be like, you know, you should write, you know, blogs about it, like your experience with pregnancy at this age. And so I did. But I never published it anywhere because I was scared that maybe I was not going to get the pregnancy or something was going to happen. So I did have my son, couple minor issues. He was diagnosed with IUGR, so he was measuring small, like 8% in the eighth percentile. That was probably the biggest issue with him. I ended up getting induced, but I was like induced like a day before my due date because he was still measuring small, and because of my age. So I had him, and he was healthy. He was 7 pounds, 2 ounces, something like that. So he was definitely healthy. And probably like a week later, I was on my chair, and I was nursing him in one hand. I had my cell phone in the other, and I just started a pregnancy after 40 group because I was like, it's like I did
like,
it.
now we can start this. He's here. Let's do that.
And so I wanted to create a community where it was a safe place for women who were even thinking about conceiving, or they were currently pregnant, and just kind of weighing their options, because there just wasn't a lot of support out there for women wanting to have children in their 40s. You don't have necessarily support from family or friends who are like, you're gonna have a baby at 40. Like it's just sometimes it just looks like from society, like you're just old, like you need to be in your 20s or 30s. And so I just wanted again to build a safe place for women. So I'm, you know, super excited. This group, we have like over 10,000 members now from women like all over the world, just sharing stories. And it's a journey, right? So you have women who are currently pregnant, but you also have women who are trying to conceive. You have women who started off pregnant, but they've had miscarriages.
I
So,
was
but
gonna,
just
I was gonna ask that. So like, I have family members that are getting closer to 40, 36, 37. And to your point in the beginning, they were in long relationships and it didn't work out. And so this is just so hopeful. I was telling one, I was like, yeah, today's guest, like she had 2 natural pregnancies in her 40s. So that's a really great resource for these women that are like, don't just settle down because I think it's time that I have to have kids. There's
right,
hope.
right. And I feel like around 38ish, when you don't have kids, like when we start making like really bad decisions, like when you want to have a baby, because you're like, okay, now I've got to beat the clock. I've got to beat this 40-year-old clock. And like they make bad decisions in the choosing of their mate. They're just like, I just want to have a baby. And it may not be the best decision, but I get it, right? Because again, we have all these statistics of how horrible it is. But again, I'm just so encouraged that there are so many women who can have babies. And again, it's whether you're doing it naturally with IVF, IUI, egg donors, like all of that. So I will say about after I had my son, started the group. About 3 months later, when my son was 3 months, when we kind of like, okay, okay, we've had the baby. Do we want to have more? And I wanted to have more, and he wanted to have another one as well. So we're like, okay, clearly I can get pregnant, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can have kids, you're not sterile. We have confirmed that. We'll just go ahead and try. And then we made it till my son was about 8 months, and then we didn't get pregnant again. And I was like, what the heck, man? So, and I've never been huge like on like tracking and check your temperature, like all that, because I'm super lazy and I'm super busy. So I thought it would happen. So when my son was about 8 months, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to be a little bit more intentional. I am 41 at this point, so I got an app and put in my cycles in there, which I always kept track of. And probably a couple of days after I had the app, it was like you should take a pregnancy test. I'm like, no way. So I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. So it was before I even got to the fertile period. I was like, wow, like this is amazing. And I think part of it, in a way, was like I just kind of released that stress. Like I think from 3 months to when my son was 8 months, I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. And I'm like, every month, like my cycle's gonna come. Damn, like my cycle came, and you
Yeah.
go through this, up and down, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's just, you all know, it's just so frustrating going through those up and downs, like every 2 weeks, almost seems like, right? So, but I think that I was like, okay, we'll just start next month, and my body was able to relax again, and I was able to conceive. Unfortunately, that pregnancy ended up in a miscarriage, and probably around 8 or 9 weeks. And so I went to my OB, and she asked me if I wanted to try again. And I was like, yes. And she's like, just wait one cycle and you can try again. And so that's what we did. And that cycle, I think, of May, I was tracking. So I was fertile, and we totally capitalized on that fertile week.
Capitalized.
Even to this day, my husband still remembers. Like, do you remember that week? He's like, yeah, I remember that week.
I remember it.
Because it's that happy sense.
Right. I know our calendar used to be filled with like hearts, like on all the fertile days. And now that like we're not trying, my husband's like, where are those hearts?
Yeah, I want a heart. Yeah. So fortunately I ended up getting pregnant that cycle. And we found out the day before my son turned one. My son turned one, and we found out. And so it was great. But again, it was because I did just have a miscarriage. That probably was the worst pregnancy, because literally every time I went to the bathroom, I'm checking. I'm checking for blood, whatever, pink. And then one day I was going to an appointment with a client, and I went to the bathroom and it was pink. And I was like, oh gosh, like I'm miscarrying again. I made an appointment with the OB. And they were like, everything is fine. You have a subchorionic hemorrhage. And so you just need some cervical rest. And it's like, okay. But still, just going through that pregnancy, again, still checking for all of that. Now, at this point, we have a couple thousand members in the Pregnancy After 40 group. And so I see all the stories. And again, because it's a journey, you have good stories, encouraging stories, but you also have the losses. Yeah. And so I'm reading this, trying to monitor everything. Before I had moderators in the group. And I just remember just like this devastating story of a woman. She went through the whole pregnancy and then she delivered and the baby was stillborn. And it just from that point forward, like for months, the rest of my pregnancy, I was just terrified. And I could not wait to have him and welcome him into the world because it will drive you crazy. It's just, yeah, it's so emotional. So I gestational diabetes with that one. It was so crazy because with my oldest son, he was too small, but this one, he was too big. And it was me.
That's so wild that it's different per pregnancy. And like, I really like that you brought that up. I mean, that's a horrendous story, and I'm sorry for your loss and I'm sorry for her loss. And I think the three of us being in this space, like when you're so passionate about helping others and you're in that space for yours 40 over and Amanda and I for this podcast, you hear the worst. You hear these horrible stories and then you like think, okay, this could happen to me. And so you're never really stress free. So maybe we'll pick your brain after the podcast on how to get there. You were giving me some good tips before we started to record.
Yes, definitely. I wish I would have had some of those tips when I was pregnant. You know, it would have made things a little bit easier. But, yeah. So I had my son. I did kind of battle with again like gestational diabetes. I battled with the doctor because he wanted. I don't think anyone actually passes the glucose test. I just feel like most people don't. I did.
I failed.
Yeah,
did you?
I failed twice. Yeah, I failed the first two, and then the third one, they said I borderline I had it. Like,
y'all, I failed the other way. Mine was so low. They said is it hypoglycemic?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Really?
So I had a whole other thing of problems. So technically, you're right. Nobody does pass.
At least not the first one. The second one, I think you can get through, but it's that first one. I don't think none of them even pass. And like, really, like, no one is going to drink this much sugar during their pregnancy. Like, why are we doing this?
Exactly.
So, but yeah, it was just interesting because the specialist just wanted to put me on medication, and I'm so like, if I don't need to take medication, I won't.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, can we like figure out? Let's like give me a chance to figure this out and my levels and all that. So I went to a nutritionist, which was great, and I figured out, what worked for me. So they gave me, I don't remember what, I guess it was metformin or something.
Mm-hmm.
It took like half a pill, maybe for like a week or two, and I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm gonna get this. Like, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, you monitor it with like food and test your like blood sugar and stuff. I feel like
4 times a day or 3 times a day, 3 or 4 times a day. Yeah.
Goodness.
It's a lot. So anyway, I worked it out, and yeah, so I had him. My birth plans were, I guess, different for everyone, for all my kids. First birth plan with my daughter was, I don't know how painful this is gonna be. I had a midwife, and I was like, I'll go as far as I can go, and if I need medication, I just want it to be an option. I went as far as I can go. I started hallucinating, and I was like, I want medication. And they were like, no, ma'am, we can't find you a room. There's women coming in here who are more dilated than you. And so I was having a complete out of body experience, like with so much pain. So,
look at Amanda and I's faces. Our mouths are on the floor.
I am dying for you.
I had an epidural, but my water broke before. And I will say, like, that hour from the water break to the epidural was the most pain of ever. Hallucinating is a perfect terminology.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was like at least 12 hours, but so I had her naturally. Yeah. So I knew from that experience at 41, I was like, I want an epidural. Like, I didn't get any stronger.
You're like, hell no, I'm not doing that again.
I want an epidural. So they ended up inducing me. I went to the doctor just to get checked. They were like, oh, he's small, we should induce. So I never went back home. I had my bags packed. I just didn't go home. So my husband and my daughter, they went to go get everything. I went to the hospital and they induced me. And I remember my water broke, and then that's when the contractions started. And so I went through that for like 5 hours, and I'm like begging for an epidural. They finally gave it to me, and like it was a breeze after that for the most part.
Yeah.
But I do remember like they were like, oh, I remember getting nauseous, and I remember they were like, your blood pressure is going down, so we need to give you something for that. I'm like, okay. You could have told me. I would have, I just would have kind of looked to see what's going on. But that was like the biggest issue. with my third son, I was like, I want an epidural about 2 weeks before I go in. So let's schedule this now.
Love it.
Schedule this, and
I love that you're sharing this because I feel like I like read a little bit about in the beginning of your book, but I feel like you're pretty holistic. Would that be accurate?
I will go natural if I can. I
Yeah.
will use medication if need be, but I will try other things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if I can. So I'm not adverse
to
medicine. So yeah, I was like, yeah, let's do this. So I did, and it was a great delivery. Like I didn't feel a thing. They're like, you're having contractions. Like, really? I'm like playing
You're
Candy
like,
Crush.
cool.
Like, yeah, I'm playing Candy Crush. I'm like recording videos. It was great. It was great. So
I mean, that's so incredible. Not only you got pregnant naturally, and I would say quite quickly for both pregnancies, but that the pregnancies themselves were pretty smooth, other than like the IUGR. And I'm surprised they didn't induce you earlier.
Yeah. So they usually, I think there's a big push for women 40 and up to induce like around 38, 39 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And that was actually suggested to me with my my youngest son. And I guess because he was bigger as well. And I think I was just so tired and I was just so over. I was mentally drained. I was like, yeah, let's do it. I do think it was a little premature, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think he needed another week or so.
Mm-hmm.
Because he had jaundice and he had to go to the hospital like every day for like the first 12 days.
That's so interesting. So I got induced at 39 and 1, and my daughter also had jaundice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they need another week, right? Or two, whatever it is. Some people like our bodies will, deliver when they're ready.
Yeah. I personally won't be induced. If I can choose not to, I will not. Mine was an elective, just for your exact story you shared earlier. I wanted the baby on the earth side. I didn't want the responsibility of carrying her anymore, and I wanted help. But interesting.
I know I had to get induced early because of my lupus. Like I went to a flare up, but then Ben was like totally fine. He didn't have jaundice or anything, and I was I was 38 weeks. Like
and Ben was a big boy, right?
And he was big. Please, I did not need him in any longer.
Right. You're evicted today. But so everything was kind of smooth. I actually had my youngest son like 2 weeks before the country shut down, or the world shut down with COVID. So that was a whole other thing.
Yeah.
At least it was right before. I feel like that would be like the best timing to have to deliver right around that time anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been. So initially I had planned to get my tooth cut when I had my youngest son. But again, because of COVID and because I had him vaginally, they were like, well, you'll have to wait for 6 weeks before you can get it done. But the 6 weeks then we were in COVID, so they weren't allowing elective surgery. And I was like, that's a sign. That's a sign I'm not supposed to have this, because if I don't have to do anything medically, like because it's not necessary, I won't.
Yeah.
And so I talked myself out of it quickly. And I didn't get it. And Kat and I were talking before, like I'm using the natural family planning method right now, and I don't know if that's the best, but because of my age, because I am close to menopause, I'm sure. I'm 46 now, and our bodies change, our cycles change, and our apps may not be as accurate. And so I might be fertile on days where my app says I'm fertile, but I'm not, and I may be fertile when it says I'm not fertile. So I went to my OBGYN last week. I had a checkup. And it's very interesting. So one of the tips, or one of the things I tell people or women, is it's really important to find a medical provider who is supportive of you having a baby in your 40s. Because I have heard like horror stories of women who doctors like, why are you having a baby at this age? What are you doing? And yada, yada, yada. And that is just a horrible feeling. So I will say I've been going to the same practice for some years now. And like I told you earlier, when I had my miscarriage, that particular doctor was like, do you want to try again? She knew my age. She was like, wait a cycle, you can do it again. So when I go last week, I went and I saw another doctor who was not even there when I first started going to this practice. And she was like, okay, what do you do for birth control? We talked about it before. And she was like, because at your age, you're probably not going to get pregnant. And I was like, excuse me, ma'am. I just want to say that since I've turned 40, I have been pregnant or nursing every year in my 40s, except for 46. So she's like, oh yeah, well, you are an outlier. I'm like, okay.
That's so frustrating though, because it's like
so.
it's already stressful if you're 40 or 20 or 30, and then to have your supposed health support already have like that negative connotation. That's awful. That's a great tip. I do want to hear about some of the tips.
Yeah, we will for sure. But yeah, that's just one of them. And if I was trying to have a baby now, like she just would have crushed my dream last week. And she was like, oh, well, your egg quality isn't that good either. So if you do get pregnant, you'll probably have miscarriage. I was like,
oh my God.
So I left her a book. I was like, listen.
Did you get it? Slide it on the table.
I was like, I have something for you.
You need to read this.
If you have patients who are like 40, like late 30s, early 40s, and they need some support, I say it's not medical based, but there is a lot of research in there. Give this to them.
Yeah.
Because I love that.
It's not very encouraging.
Seriously. So did your book, okay, so you had both your sons during your first postpartum period / new pregnancy, you started the online group. Did the group spin into the book, or you were like, man, I'm just so passionate about my experience, I want to give this to others? How did your book come about?
Again, if you would have told me a year ago that I would have a book out now about fertility tips, I would have thought you were crazy, because it just was not on my radar at all. So, but again, yes, so it started with the group and then hearing the stories. And then I started a podcast shortly after my second son was born. I had the podcast come out, and it was just pretty much just women in their 40s, 40 and up, who had babies, successful pregnancies and deliveries. And it's just kind of community, because I would welcome every member who joined the group, and I would send them a personal message. And like when you have a number of people, that can be overwhelming. I would feel like half of my day like chatting with women, like if you have questions, and so I would get those stories from women, and then I will also interview women, and then just the post. Like it is just an amazing group. And I have to say, I don't really have to do anything with the group. Our moderators don't have to do a lot with the group, because it's just a community of women running the group. Like every once in a while there'll be something, but like they're just so supportive of one another. And so reading those stories, going through those stories, and reading as well, doing some research, I finally came up. I was like, okay, let me go back a little bit. I did start a matchmaking agency a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, let's hear about that.
I know, I'm like so curious about this.
So the reason I did that, one, was because I have found that as a successful professional, as a woman, the older you get, the harder it is to find a relationship or get into a relationship. And so I was working with a demographic of women, primarily like C-suite executives and attorneys and doctors, and their associates, right? And they're like my age, late 30s, early 40s, and they had never been married, and they didn't have any kids, but they wanted to, because they're reaching that age. And so I would have these discussions. I would literally have like women just like crying, like, I feel like I'm being punished because, I chose my career over having kids. And so I kind of became like the inspiration and encouragement for those women who were looking for mates, but they also saw my story that I had children in my 40s. Because I'm like, just relax. Like, I know, again, around 38, that was my year. You start panicking, making decisions. Like, just relax. It is possible, and there are options. So that's where it kind of started. Like, I started getting inspired by that, and I wanted to give them more encouragement in the form of a book. And I, initially was like 50 tips, then I kind of dwindled it down to like 40, because I like the number 40. So
I love it.
Yeah. So my feng shui. So that's where it kind of came about. It probably took like a year. I would kind of give tips, and I already had them somewhere, right? Just kind of like brainstorming, and I just kind of finally just put it together and put the book out. So it's an easy read, because again, I do a lot, we do a lot, we work, we parent, we're wives, like we have all this going on. I don't want anything that's medical or complicated. I want to go in and out. Like, what is the tip and where's the resource? Like, that's it. And that's really what it is. If you want to get through it in a day.
A book for women that are also that's awesome. I read the first, I think it's tip 2, and I could be wrong. Is it the water tip? And I wanted to touch on this for a reason. Is that the second tip?
It's the 4th tip.
4th. Okay. See, it was so easy that I got all the way to water, and I thought I'd only read 2.
There you go.
So this is so interesting, and I don't want to go on too big of a tangent, but my whole story is lengthy, and I had miscarriage after miscarriage. So after the sixth one, same thing. I had dropped everything. We were moving forward with adoption. We had stopped trying to conceive, and I had gotten a personal trainer. And in that, one of my goals was to drink, I think at the time it was like 76 ounces of water a day. And I had never in my whole life done that. I was like a 1 to 2 cups of water a day when I could fit it in. And I kid you not, 4 weeks after the program, I got pregnant with my daughter. That's now 8 months old. And it's just like, I tell my husband to this day, I swear to God, if it was just water and we did IVF, and all the, we truly joke about it. He's like, are you kidding me? You could have just drank a little bit more water. But I really love seeing that tip in the book because I resonated so quickly to that I'm like, it really makes a difference.
Yeah, I think it does. So yeah, a while ago, maybe probably 2 years ago, I did a poll in the group, like, where are you with your water consumption? And most people are like, yeah, I barely do it, or I get it in when I can. And some, like, every once in a while, you'll say, no, I do a gallon. They have different like measures, like half your weight in ounces or a gallon or whatever it is. I'm like, if you just get 8, like, that's great. Whatever the minimum is. And, you know, I talk about in the book, like, we're always still drink water, drink water, drink water. From like the time you're a kid. Why? Like, why is that important? Can you tell us, like, why it's important? And in the fertility world, it's because it increases your cervical fluid, and which makes it easier for the sperm to travel to wherever it needs to go to. So, you know, I wanted to put that in there, why it's so important. I mean, it's important for different reasons.
No, but that you taught me that. And I'm such a researcher that, like, I never even thought, even after I did have a successful pregnancy, I never even really thought about it. But I was reading that and I'm like, oh, well, that makes so much sense.
It makes so much sense. Yeah. Never even thought of it.
Okay, so share some of your, if you don't mind. Are we okay to jump into the book?
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Awesome. Will you share like your top 5 favorite tips out of the 40?
Top 5. Okay, so the only one that's in order in the book is the first one, and that's like, stop trying for right now. Like, that's the top.
Love that one.
Stop trying, because again, we have all this stress in us, and we've gone through the tracking, all that. So just, you know, give yourself a few months and then try to incorporate a lot of these other tips. I don't think you need to do 40 plus fertility tips. I think you can do a handful, because it's really about making a lifestyle change. And it's, especially at our age, if you follow the tips, honestly, anybody, whether you're trying to conceive or not conceive, you follow the tips in this book, you will be a healthy person. You will add years to your life. And at our age, you'll be here longer for your children, you know, barring any, you know, tragic accident or any other health issues, but you're going to become a healthy person. Like, men could follow it without, you know, maybe like 3 or 4, which is again like tracking. But it's about a lifestyle change. So, one, to stop for a minute. And water is one. I used to talk in like the 3 W's. It was water was one of them. One of my favorite tips. Walking is huge. Make sure you get some moderate exercise in. You know, it helps with blood flow, which you need, which goes towards your cervix and uterus, one of them. So it goes to your female part, which helps again with the blood flow that you need. And weight. There's another one that's really important. Whether you're overweight, whether you're underweight, just find your ideal weight. I mean, even if you're going to go to like IVF or IUI, the specialist is probably going to tell you, if you're overweight, you're going to need to lose some weight. So why not start incorporating some of these tips and getting to an ideal weight beforehand? It's just going to prolong the process once you get to a specialist. And so those were 3 I used to give often. I might give a little bit more than 5.
That sounds great. I just made 5 up.
So I also know Kat as well, that I speak as a work-life balance strategist and speaker as well. And finding time for yourself. We often, as women, we just give. Like, we give to our jobs, we give to our businesses, we give to our partners, we give to our spouses, we give to our children. And we don't take time for us. And so I was saying that every Sunday, which is why I'm able to do this recording today, every Sunday is like my day, like the first half of the day. And so about between like 3 and 5 o'clock in the morning, I'll usually get it from the master bedroom, and I'll come to my personal room, my private room. I have a bed there, but it's also my office, and I'll go and I'll fall asleep there. And I have little ones. I have a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, and every Sunday they come to my room because they always seek mommy. They come to my room and they're like, knock, 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 and they're knocking on my door, and I refuse to answer. And when I answered, for like 10, 15 minutes, like one time, I think they fell asleep in front of my door.
Oh,
but most times, they're like, oh my God. I'm like, nope, you're not even going to hear me speak. I could be gone for all I know. For all they know. So, but most times we'll go to the other room with my husband. Again, we'll get them something to eat, changes pull-ups if that's what needs to be. We're, thank God, almost out of that stage. But change those. And I just kind of, relax in my room. Now, there's mom guilt associated with that. You're like, can I really do this? Should I do this? My husband works as well. But no, you have got to be intentional about taking some time for yourself.
I mean, that
for your mental headspace.
The stress is like soaking off my body just listening to what you do on
I know,
Sunday.
right?
It's so funny you bring this up. Like my husband and I got into it last night because we do our podcast on Sunday. So like this hour feels like it's our time, but it's also so exhausting because we're like pouring ourselves into really work in a project that we want to be proud about. And so then I was like, man, I really want to go work out today, but I've already done the podcast. I don't think I could do that. So I'm about to steal this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've got to be intentional about it, and you have to communicate it to other people. You have got to communicate it to your husband, whether it's your parents or whomever, even your kids at a young age, so they know they start getting used to that. Because initially, when I thought of this, I told my husband, I thought I was very clear. I want Sundays. I was clear for about a week or two because he did it for like a week or two, and then like 6 weeks later, I realized I'm still getting up on Sundays. I'm still doing the same thing because I put on my Superwoman cape and we just do what we have to do. And I was like, no, we're not doing this, because I have reached several points in my life where I felt like I have been burned out. I've also represented mental health patients as an attorney for 10 years. And so I know where I don't want to be. I have represented so many people, and it doesn't matter how much money you have, how many degrees you have, how successful you are, how much, any of that. It doesn't matter. We are all subject to burnout, and we've got to be protective of our mental health and burnout. So find that time, especially when you have kids, and they'll be okay. Man, you'll realize after the first week that the house didn't burn down. There was only one time when my husband had to take down the door because one of the kids got their head stuck in it. Only happened once. So
oh my gosh.
Okay, once in how long though? How many years? Once a year?
Oh my gosh. It was once a year.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
I know. I need to have a conversation with Chris now after this. I'm
sorry guys.
Even my mom, she'll call, she used to, on a Sunday in the morning, she's like, oh, it's your day. I'm like, yeah, it's my day. So usually it's about 11 o'clock noon. That's my time. And if you just want to sleep. If you want to watch TV, watch TV. If you want to do read a book. I would stay away from doing laundry or, running errands, because there's another time for that.
Yeah.
But let me see about you. How amazing does it sound just to go out on your patio with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, hearing the birds chirp and no one around you.
Yes.
So
it sounds glorious. I'm I need to start this now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, we were totally meant to talk today because I got up at 4 just because I was like, I just need to sit in the dark and have my coffee so I can drink it.
Yeah. And it helps whether you're trying to conceive, during pregnancy, and afterwards. You just need it, and we have to just be more diligent about doing so. I'll say the 5th tip would be to do a detox and a cleanse. And I say that especially for women my age, because we have 20 years more stress. We have 20 years more of alcohol consumption. We have 20 years more of horrible eating. We have 20 years more of environmental toxins in our body. And so it's really important to get that out. And I'll tell a quick story. So after I had my youngest son, I had 2 more pregnancies. Those both ended up in miscarriages as well. We weren't trying to get pregnant. We weren't really following my app. Well, we were. And we were right on the line. You're fertile Monday, right? And then I think it's Sunday at 11:55, we engaged and I got pregnant. Like, okay.
Oh God.
Now there's a buffer. So
right.
we add to that calendar. But between after my youngest son, and I was still nursing him, I had an incident where I had to go to the hospital for about a week. I had pancreatitis. I'm not going to get into how I think I got it because I don't want to get into all of these conspiracy theories. But I got it, and I was in the hospital for about a week. And so through that, I couldn't consume any food or water. I was just on fluid, and my body was completely cleaned out, like completely. And so I got out of the hospital, and I'm not thinking. I think my husband and I, we were probably active like one time, like within that month afterwards, and I ended up pregnant. And I was like, what the heck? Like, what is it? And so, and I don't talk about that in the book because it's like more medically based. Like I can't prove it, but I can say, like just from personal experience, like we had been kind of doing that for a while and I didn't get pregnant, but just like getting everything out and you lose some of that weight and, all of that. I was like totally clean from like all these years. And I think really and truly that added to me being able to conceive that time. Wow. And so, yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, you do have all that stuff in your body. Mm-hmm. You need to kind of get rid of it, especially if you're not like eating clean and all that. It's important to do a detox.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Do you have any, I know obviously the reason you detox was because you were in the hospital and stuff, but do you have any recommendations of what people can do to detox?
So I list a couple things in the book. There's a few resources, and I don't want to quote them wrong, but they're in the book that you can look up things that are popular for people and what works for them. Some of it is just going to be what you consume and clean your body that way. Some people it will be you're going to take a supplement to help you with that. I would try a combination of both or do what works best for you. Yeah, there's some resources in the book about that.
Did you personally take any supplements that were geared towards, pregnancy in their 40s, or yours was pretty holistic?
Mine was holistic. Yeah. And I have for a while, I do blends anyway, and green blends, primarily kale, but I'll switch it up like with spinach or broccoli, different kinds of things. So I've done that for a couple of years as well to kind of help clean out. And when I go for a while without doing it, like I can feel a difference. So yeah, get awesome. Anything.
So where can listeners find your book to purchase?
Sure, it's available on Amazon, the paperback and the Kindle version. Also, Barnes and Noble. If you're not a fan of Amazon.
Nice. Oh, I love that. Yeah. That's a funny story.
40 plus fertility tips, right?
That's 40 plus fertility tips for women over 40.
Okay, yep, and it's a pink book, and so we'll tag it too on the post. But okay, so last thing, I know we're wrapping up with our time. I just have so many friends right now that either freshly divorced and they didn't have children, or they are very similar to your story, 5+ relationship in their 30s, and now they're feel like they're starting over. And when they start over, they're like, okay, I'm starting over to find a husband, but I can't have kids now. What words of advice would you give those people?
From a dating perspective or
from all of it? From a hope perspective of you are not written off because you are 35 and older for having children.
Oh, absolutely not. So one of the first things I would say if you're approaching that age is to join a support group. So of course I'll say mine, but there's plenty of others out there that support pregnancy, whether it's after 35 or 40, because I think that's really encouraging to know that there are women this age and older that can have healthy babies. So that'd be the first one. And oh my gosh, I'm kind of going into, do I want to give tips on dating and meeting quality men? Because that's my thing.
I think you should. No, I think you should. I would love to hear it. And I know people would love to hear it too, because I just keep hearing, and I have more than one friend, but they're like, yeah, they're good. I mean, yeah, they're okay. And they're just wanting to get the whole process over with. Because gosh,
you want to settle.
Yeah, what I'm hearing about the dating world right now is just tough.
Yeah, I have no desire to be in it at all. No. But if I were, one of the things I say is we as women, we're not efficient in dating nearly as much as men are, and to be a little bit more efficient and consistent. So whether you're trying to meet someone in person or online, you've got to be like, I just like take the number. How many dates do you want to go on a month? And you need to times that like times 5, because those are the number of contacts you're going to need to make.
I like
and then
this.
it kind of like dwindles down, because the people you actually will connect with and go out with, you'll probably be like at 1 or 2 people. It's a numbers game. And you also want to put yourself in places where your ideal mate is. So if you want them to drive a certain type of car, make a certain amount of money, then you should be at country clubs. So, and just different places. If you're a professional, I tell people, go to conferences that are not in your industry and get a room at the host hotel after hours, go mingle with that type of demographic. Like if you want a doctor, then go to medical conferences. Don't get a ticket to the conference, but go.
That's creative. Okay, man, I'm so happy I'm not single, but this is great advice.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things. There's a whole thing, consultation I go with women. It just kind of depends on their interests and all that. But those are some big ones. Yeah. But it definitely is absolutely possible. One of our moderators in the group, she got pregnant naturally at 47. So and she had a baby at 48. I had one encouraging story. Check out the podcast as well. You'll hear just different stories. But there was a couple, Kelly is her name. Her and her husband were both disabled. They're both in wheelchairs. And she had her son at 48. Now with IVF, I think they did both sperm donor and they did his sperm as well, the husband's sperm.
Yeah.
Now this is after they've adopted a baby. And then they were kind of like, are we going to try? But they did. 48 years old in a wheelchair. Like, it's one of the most encouraging stories to me ever.
Yeah, and your podcast, is it listed so if people can find it? Is it Pregnancy After 40?
It's Pregnancy After 40 and on all major podcast platforms.
Well, thank you so much, Tamika. I personally learned a lot. I'm not currently 40 or trying to conceive, but I really want to read your book in case that is something I'm coming up against in the next couple of years. We will link your podcast, and I know you're getting geared up to maybe do some new seasons, but I think that's a really good resource for women. Do you mind dropping the name of your support group or how they can find that?
Sure. So that's actually on Facebook. It's Pregnancy After 40 private group. There's a couple out there. So yes, they have to be the one that says private group. And again, like whatever your age is, if you are over 40, I tell women go in a group, type in a number, put like 44. If you're like 44 years old, put 44, and you'll see like the stories of women having babies or, whatever's going on at 44. If they conceived, if they had babies, they just put in a number and you'll see all of that. So it's a great group of women.
Awesome. And then we will also link your book. So thank you so much for being on with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.